What we have here is the Citroen C3 Aircross. That's right, it's an SUV built on the same platform that we get the C3 as well as, I guess to a certain extent, the EC3. It's much larger though, and you can see that from the get-go right here on the side. So you've got a pretty decent mid-size SUV built on the same platform, and it's got your typical Citroen design elements. So dominating up front is these neat two lines that you get as your DRLs. You got your headlight housed in over there, and lower down a nicely designed sort of front lower dam with your fog lights at the bottom. Of course, being a C3 Aircross, it's got all those Aircross design elements, including these neat chrome lines that go and nicely merge with the Citroen logo that sits up center, nice and bold. So you can see that right here. It's a pretty smart looking car. I mean, it's got its French quirks, but overall, really nothing to complain about when it comes to front design. Even with the bonnet, you can see there's got a little bit of sculpting, so it's not just a flat sort of bonnet. They've given it some character over there. That's a little touch from their end. Nice flared wheel arches. So they've gone with a slightly more sporty design. They wanted it to have a young, youthful look. And I think, you know, when you take all of this in, the C3 Aircross does come across as something that's young and vibrant in that sense. ORVMs get turn indicators on them. This one is obviously the dual tone version, so you've got a nice grayed out roof, neat roof rails up top. So, you know, giving you that quintessential SUV look, something that we're growing to love in this urban SUV market. It rides on 17-inch wheels. So these are 215/60 R17s, which is pretty decent. You know, being an SUV that's designed for the urban market, Citroen has also given it about 200 mm of ground clearance, which is pretty good for this segment. It is a front-wheel drive, but having said that, you know, you can take it to locations such as this. You know, getting here was really not a problem. I think where the C3 Aircross really shines in terms of design is when you look at it from the rear. So it does have an upright rear to give you more space on the inside. I will be talking about that in a bit and telling you some quirks that it comes with. But from a design standpoint, you gotta love the rear lights. These look absolutely stunning. I think they've got that whole sea motif going for them. They've not gone with a beam across the back, but you do get this nice black insert over here, which, you know, it gives a bit of character to the overall design element. And it's really neat. I mean, the stance of the vehicle from here looks absolutely stunning. Up top, you've got your shark fin antenna, which again is a sign of the times. A lot of people don't like that little stick sticking out anymore. At the back as well, you can see that, you know, Citroen has done this entire bit of giving it a little bit of bulge over here, giving it a nice character line right at the shoulder level. So all of this works to give it, you know, a nice sporty look. So all in all, you're really not going to complain about how the C3 Aircross looks. I mean, it is a pretty striking vehicle for its class. I think it's something fresh, something young, and definitely something that will get heads to turn when you're out on the road. Even the door, you know, just breaking up that massive bit of sheet metal, you've got this strip that runs across the side, which again lends to the character of the SUV, as well as brings out a little bit of more of the design element to sort of just break the flow and give you a nice SUV-ish look. Now, coming to the cabin, I'm going to actually start with the rear because this one is rather special. So, as you can see, massive 511 liter boot space. This is the largest in the segment. Till last week, it was the Honda Elevate, which had 458, but now Citroen is out with 511 liters of boot space. There is an interesting feature back here. It's piled under all these bags, but right down here you can see that you've got two folded seats. So these are, well, seat number 6 and seat number 7. So the C3 Aircross is actually a 5+2 seater. You can have it in a 5-seater configuration, or you can get these 2 extra seats which incidentally pop out in about 30 seconds. You can remove them and leave them at home if you want to have more luggage space on board. Or if you're doing a short haul with friends, you can stick them back in and you've got a 7-seater. This is the first 7-seater mid-size SUV in the market. And I think Citroen has played it smart. And that goes back to why I was telling you that it has such an upright, straight design at the rear. Best said, it's for short hauls, and leg space and all of that is, not something that you can really write home about. Again, it's about giving you flexibility. It's about giving you that ease of use. And I think Citroen has done a good job with that. The second row is really neat. So it's got a 60-40 split, and you can see that space is done nice, the contouring is done really well. The cushioning, again, I think the fabrics, the materials used is top notch. So you do get a sense of quality with that. With Citroen, I think one of their biggest elements is comfort. They take comfort very seriously. And even here at the rear, you've got ample headroom. You've got a neat blower AC unit to keep you comfortable back here with its own dial. So that is something that is a novel touch. At the bottom, you've got your USB charging, which is something that we all need now, considering the amount of devices we carry around. Rear seat comfort is really something that is a bit of a standout feature with the C3 Aircross. And moving up front, firstly, you get pretty decent doors. They're not flimsy, they feel great. And I think that, it's your typical European build that you can feel over there. And the cabin itself is very reminiscent of the C3 hatchback. So, a lot of the design elements that we've seen on the C3, like the AC vents, this patterned, on the dash, all of that is very reminiscent of the C3 hatchback. As far as features go, I'm just going to fire up the C3 Aircross and tell you a little bit more about what you get on board. You've got a nice digital cluster, which again has modes for what you see on the screen. And you can sort of mess around with that. And, it's a pretty neat cluster over here. With the steering, you've got steering mounted controls. So you can answer your phone, you can control volume. And over here, you can use the menu button to get through other elements as well as access your touchscreen infotainment system, which happens to be a 10.2-inch screen. Forgive the flickering, I'm just going to try and get the angle right. It's got wireless Android Auto, wireless Apple CarPlay, of course Bluetooth settings. All of that has been given with the C3 Aircross. So I think that they've got connectivity pretty sorted over there. As you come down towards the AC, now the dials are typical old school, so you don't have anything digital happening over here. And your cooler and heater is this knob. Your fan switch is right here. And to change the vent from just the circulation, it is this toggle over here, which is rather old school. But again, I think with Citroen, it is about building a vehicle that's more about functionality and practicality with a hint of your premium Frenchness. But overall, it is something that gives you a sense that yes, it will be to a cost. On board, the other elements that are there is you've got a 12-volt socket, you've got a USB charging port right up here. There is no USB Type-C, which I think is a little bit of a letdown, but ample storage. So nice cup holder, you can keep your cell phone up here. Wireless charging is missing, which would have been great. I think this tray right here could have been a wireless charger. Maybe in the future it will be. And again, an extra cubby back here. A pretty decent sized glove box too. So you have to reach in. So if you're sitting in the passenger seat, it is a bit of a reach in there, but you can get a lot put away. The doors, again, forgive the water bottles, but you've got ample storage in the doors. And that's again something that's really going for you. Up front, the seats, they do look great. You've got well contoured seats over here as well. and ample travel as well. I'm 6'2", and getting, pushing the seat all the way back and sitting inside comfortably is rather nice. Unlike some of the other mid-size segment SUVs that you do have, the C3 Aircross does feel a little narrower inside as compared to them. So when someone's sitting in the driver's seat and you're in the passenger seat, you guys feel kind of close to each other. So that is definitely one thing. It is, after all, based on the C3 platform, and space was definitely going to be a bit of a concern when I set out. It's not really something that you're going to complain about, but if space is your top priority item, you get it in length, you don't really get it in overall width within the cabin. But the seats, again, Citroen does a brilliant job in terms of comfort. All of that is great. Nothing electronic about them. It's all manual adjusting. So just keep that in mind. Currently, Citroen has the front window buttons on the front driver door over here. Obviously, the front passenger also gets it. But for the rear passengers, the switches are down in the center. And if you're the driver and you're trying to operate them with your armrest down, it's not going to be happening. And frankly, I would have gotten rid of the armrest. I don't think that's something that I would want in this car. I just feel it's like too much of an aftermarket add-on. It doesn't give me that sense of premiumness. Overall, there's not too much to really point out with the cabin of the C3 Aircross. Elements that the competition has, which people might point out and say, hey, the Kia has this, the Creta has this, the Taycan has this, all of that. Well, there is no sunroof, so that is something that Citroen is sticking with. They're not offering this with a sunroof. As you experience the vehicle, as you take a look at it, there are elements that you can tell are not your typical mid-size SUV level stuff, which makes me feel that Citroen is going for a slightly different play over here, and this is going to be a vehicle that's going to be coming in at a cost that is actually going to surprise us. Prices will be out in September and delivery start in October, but for now I'm just going to be telling you a lot more about the C3 Aircross in this video. So stick around. I'm just going to get down to the bits under the bonnet. So let me pop that bonnet open. You've got the lever right here, and shut this off. But before I do get to the bonnet, let me just quickly point out that the C3 Aircross only comes with a 6-speed manual. Yes, there is no automatic variant from the beginning, but Citroen has promised us that an automatic is on the cards, and it will be in the market rather soon. But currently, at the time of launch, it's going to be just the manual. And now we can get down to the engine. So under the hood, what you get is a 1.2 liter turbo engine. It's a turbo petrol, and you might be thinking, hey, the competition does 1.5 liters. Why is Citroen going with a 1.2? Just to correct you over there, you know that Skoda and Volkswagen also have a 1 liter TSI engine in their SUVs. So, a 1.2 is now not sounding that small. But if you've driven the Volkswagen and you've driven these small turbos, you do get a fair understanding of what I'm getting at. In the Citroen, the 1.2 that it comes with delivers 110 PS of power, and it does 190 Newton meters of torque. Just to give you a little bit of perspective over there, you've got the Honda Elevate that does 121 PS of power and 145 Newton meters of torque out of a 1.5 liter engine. I think it's par for the course. When you drive it around, you take it for a spin, it's got the grunt. It pulls quite nice. Feels a little rough around the edges at lower speeds, but you're not really going to be complaining about power when it comes to this engine. I think in that sense, it's rather well appointed and well packaged too. Coming to the elements of driving the Citroen C3 Aircross. From the get-go, it's a Citroen. So you know that comfort is a top priority item for them, and this one also rides like it's on an air suspension unit. You know, it's that refined. So it feels great. It soaks in the road undulations really well. Does a brilliant job of traversing over, bad roads. And I think the ground clearance plays its part in giving you the confidence to sort of fly through ditches and bumps without bottoming out. Citroen has done a good job in terms of a very short front overhang and at the rear as well. So you got the wheels in the corners to a large extent. So you got a 20.5 degree approach angle, and I think it's a 25 degree departure angle. While it is not an off-roader, this is very handy getting out of mall parking lots, which are now getting steeper and steeper. It's very handy for dealing with big speed breakers and those urban obstacles that you're constantly dealing with. So well thought out over there. I think that is something that's a very big plus point for the C3 Aircross. But coming back to the way it drives, yes, the engine vibration can be felt a little bit, but overall it's extremely comfortable, extremely planted, feels good on the roads, and there's really not too much to complain about when it comes to the way it handles either. Even body roll is largely in check. So that's something that I think Citroen can be rather proud of in terms of getting all of that right. You know, I'm not really going to complain about the way it feels to drive. I think they've managed to come up with a formula that works, and it does the job right. And it is an interesting sort of addition to this entire lineup. Last but not the least, coming down to safety on board. Citroen says that it's built on a nice sort of rigid body. You've got, all the strength in the right places. They've not really given us too much detail at this point in terms of overall safety. But just a few things that you can see. It's got disc brakes up front. So you got the disc brakes right over there. At the rear, it's running drum brakes. So it's got a disc drum setup. You get 2 airbags on board, and so you've only got the driver and front passenger airbags on board. That's you can see the front passenger airbag element right here. We are moving towards Bharat NCAP. We are moving towards these global norms, and I think the new norm is that 6 airbags is mandatory. So when the time is right, I believe Citroen will be sticking in 6 airbags into the C3 Aircross. But for now, because it's not a requirement, they're not doing it. So that is something that you need to know. Last but not the least, pricing. Now, this is the big question, because when you look at the mid-size SUV market, it is a crowded place. I said this in my Honda Elevate video as well, because we counted off a total of 9 products, including the C3 Aircross, that now sit in this segment in terms of size and what you define as a mid-size SUV. But coming down to the element of pricing, we have to look at the entire range. So you've got the range starting at about 10.5 and going all the way up to 20 lakhs. So there are a lot of gaps. There is space to slot in a vehicle like the C3 Aircross, and I think that is where Citroen is playing their cards really smart, because at the end of the day, they've done a great job of building something that brings a lot of value. It is not high value, but it's the right value. And I think if they can get this top-end variant that I'm currently driving right here, out in the market at, let's say, 13 lakhs, they have an absolute winner on their hands. It's practical, it's fun, it's got a decent amount of pep, it's got just the right amount of features that you're looking for. Yes, there are a few missing, but you're really not going to complain about a lot of those things. Like, very honestly, I could care less for a sunroof, but I would need wireless charging. The same way for someone else, a sunroof could be a priority item. And but when you look at the price and you say that, hey, I'm getting a rather decent package, a pretty big SUV, a pretty stylish looking machine, for about 13, that would be phenomenal, right? And I think that is what Citroen really needs to do with the C3 Aircross, is to play around with that pricing element, and I feel that that's right up their sleeve. We've seen them do it before, and I feel that they will do it again. On that note, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you liked what I had to say about the C3 and point out some of its nuances. Do like, share and subscribe. Leave a comment behind. I look forward to hearing back from you. And if you do have any more queries about the C3 Aircross, I will answer that. It's a promise from me. I answer all the questions that come in on my YouTube channel. So if you leave a comment, I will get back to you. Thanks for tuning in.